Ado, our presenter today is Deb West-Machashek with Nikon Precision. Deb has been in the technical publications field for approximately 25 years and has been using XML for the last 5. She is an evangelist for data adoption at Nikon Precision. She's been there for approximately 15 years, and before that she taught technical writing and contemporary literature at the university level. Deb, it's up to you.
Thank you, Brandon. Good morning, everybody. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about how we moved at Nikon Precision from a very basically painful process to what has become much, much more efficient for us. And if I can get this to work. It seems that my presentation has locked up. Let's see. There we go. All right, first I'm going to cover a little bit of introduction background information and then talk about the challenge that we had, the solution that we implemented, and the results, and where we're going in the future. All right, I have been with, like Brandon said, I've been with Nikon for over 15 years now. I came on as a technical writer. I'm now the information architect and XML production manager. Now, XML production manager is a made-up title. In our world, has everything to do with our content management system. Like I said, I started out as a technical writer. I've been an editor, the supervisor. I've managed the department. In 2009, I switched over managing the tools. I'm not sure which one was better, but we're proceeding anyway. Right now, I'm in the middle of getting these go live for our Windchill PDM link. It's going quite well. All right, a little bit about Nikon Precision. Most of you know Nikon from the cameras. What we do at Nikon Precision is semiconductors. We service and support the machines that basically make the wafers that are the semiconductors for the big chip manufacturers. So one statistic that's kind of interesting is that over half of all integrated circuits ever made have been manufactured on Nikon machines. Nikon Precision itself is located in Belmont, California. We are partnered with a sister subsidiary in Europe called NPE. They're in Germany, and we have more than 700 employees. Our main focus is sales, service, and customer support. One of the biggest facets of our support is training. Now, we train all of our field service engineers, our FSEs, and we train our external customers, those who are creating the wafers. This photo right here is of our newest building in Belmont. It's our training center. And we have students who come in from everywhere. This is truly a worldwide training center. They come from Ireland, Israel, China, Korea, well, South Korea, and of course around the U.S. Now, our technical publications process was in huge disarray. We got a lot of complaints. What we did was we had basically a use study performed by Comtech back in 2006. And what was nice was what we suspected the results would be were actually what Comtech said exactly. They said that our authoring and production tools were basically, they'd reached their shelf life. A lot of our activities were manual, they were redundant, not a lot of value added as far as quality content for technical information. Our field service engineers were out there in the field. These poor folks are face-to-face with the customers, literally. And when a machine is down, that's millions of dollars in revenue for our customer, but it's also, we suffer what are called downtime penalties. And if a machine is down for a while, which can be anywhere, depending on the contract, anywhere between an hour, days, whatever, we start racking up downtime penalties, and that's in the millions of dollars too. So this was not a small problem. If our FSEs could not find information, that meant that tool was down longer. And we found that we actually reused a lot of information to repurpose it as, you know, a technical bulletin or a service procedure or something that was used during training. But that reuse and repurposing was really manual, and it was very labor intensive. It took a lot of time to do. I'll give you some statistics on that in a little bit. So in May of 2006, our internal findings matched Comtech's, and we decided we needed a solution quickly, but we didn't want to just throw money at a problem. We actually wanted to fix it. So we decided to do a small proof of concept project just in the documentation department with a small group of users, and if it was successful, then we could let it grow. So our conclusions at that point, we had really reached a tipping point. Our processes weren't working, our technology wasn't supporting our business requirements, and our customers, now we consider our FSEs customers also. So whether it's an FSE or an external customer, it's a customer as far as my group's concerned. They were unhappy. The quality of the information wasn't what they needed it to be. So the time spent in the field finding the correct and most current information was at the expense of tool uptime. And we were spending an excessive amount of time in my documentation group just managing the content and not actually being able to focus on the quality. So our solution was to purchase and implement an XML structured authoring solution with three main goals. Improve field search times and improve efficiencies in creating information, and improve reuse and repurpose of information. So we wanted to increase our tool uptime. We wanted to have the most accurate information we could have out there. We wanted to automate our publishing. We really wanted to streamline our conversion of input. And we wanted to get to the point where we wrote a piece of information once, reused it a lot of times. The goal behind that was when we did the studies, our FSEs especially told us, I can find 4 procedures out here. One's in a bulletin, one's in a manual, one's here, one's there. For doing this procedure to fix this machine, they're all different. I don't know which one's right. And that just made their world awful. Now, part of the reason we have incredible processing times for our information is that our source material originates in Japan. All design and manufacture happens in Japan. We are customer support, sales, service, training. So the core of the technical information that we have originates in Japan in Japanese, has to be translated to English, and then repurposed. Now, we have a sister subsidiary in Japan called NSI. It's Nikon Service Inc. And they create basic information. A lot of times you can call this a book in a box. So when a machine ships, there are 30, depending on the machine, there are 30 to 50 manuals that go with that machine. You know, luckily now they're e-manuals, but you know, there are 30 to 50 manuals that go with this machine. There's good information in those manuals for repurposing into, say, training classes and that, but we do not receive the source documents. We get PDF files. These PDF files are of the basic operations, basic preventive maintenance, and software procedures. Our other source of material is procedures from technical bulletins, installation check sheets, or in collaboration with subject matter experts. Our technical writers will sit down and build information. But like I said, the core of it comes from Japan. Our theoretical content is always created in collaboration with SMEs. Our authoring tools, we were using unstructured FrameMaker. At the time, we were pretty happy about that because we had moved from PageMaker to FrameMaker. So our little doc group was okay with that, but it didn't last long. FrameMaker's a very good tool, but it was not keeping up with what we needed to do. And we had a staff of 3 technical writers, a tech writing supervisor, which was me, 1 production person, and 1 technical illustrator. Our technical illustrator, believe it or not, is still with us. He was using Adobe Illustrator for his tool, and he still is at this point. We are looking at adding tools to his toolbox like IsoDraw and that, but right now he's still using Illustrator. All right, so this slide shows a bit about how things come in a variety of, how our source comes in a variety of different formats and styles, and has to come into our group, basically be ripped apart and repurposed and sent back out as, say, a theory manual or a preventive maintenance manual, advanced maintenance information. Okay. All of this content is manually converted and then had standard styles and formats applied to it. Now remember, in this point, it's still in FrameMaker. Our publishing and repurposing, very labor and time intensive. If anyone made a change to the content, say a technical instructor wanted to change some of the content, it took quite a while to basically just to add or remove or move content and then reformat and relay it out again. Those who've worked in FrameMaker know what I'm talking about. Because we repurposed information but had no good way to track that repurposing, our content could be inconsistent. The information could reside in multiple places, and monolithic or book level information would be very difficult to search and access. The PDFs we created were often of 2,000-page manuals. They were enormous PDFs. They took a long time to download, and they were really hard to search, only for an FSE to find out that the procedure he wanted was not there. Okay. That entire process that we had was entirely manual and heavily dependent on human memory and experience. A technical writer would have to remember where a piece of information or a procedure, a chapter, whatever, where it had also been used. If we got an update, we had to remember where it had been used, all the places it had been used. And of course, when you're relying on human memory, you miss things. Okay. And then again, if that person left the company, that was, you know, a complete brain drain. We lost all of that. So this was our world in 2007, let's say. This was our world. We would get a PDF in from Japan, and a 400-page manual would roughly take us 14 days just to convert. This was not rewriting any of the English, because this had been translated Japanese to English, and the quality was variable, let's say. Okay. Just to convert it into something that we could use into FrameMaker would take us 14 days. If we got a project where we actually reused content that we already had at Nikon Precision, NPI is Nikon Precision Inc. If we had content that we were going to reuse that we already had here, we could do 90 pages a day. So if we were repurposing, say we had a request to do a different type of training class. We already had the content, we just had to pull it together from different sources, lay it out and format it again in FrameMaker as a new training manual. Well, that would take us 4.5 days. And this was if, like again, this was if there was no rewriting involved. This was just do copy, paste, relayout. If we got in a request to revise information that we had, we could probably revise about 60 pages a day, so it would take us 7 days. So if an instructor submitted changes to the content, it would take us a little bit of time to get this turned around, and of course people are usually in a hurry. So we always risked letting folks down, and we really didn't want to do that anymore. If the revisions were due to a software change, now we have these very large machines, photolithography machines. All of them have similar but not identical subsystems in them, and the software that runs everything is also a Nikon product. So the software, as we all know, keeps updating bug fixes and that, but it can also change how a procedure is performed. And if the change that we got to a training manual was based on a software change, that would take even longer because we had to go get screen captures and the whole 9 yards. It was very, very painful. We would also have instances where an instructor would come across what's called a technical bulletin. It's really a service procedure. They would come across a technical bulletin and they'd say, this would be great to have in this training class. Let's add it to this manual. Well, if it was a 3-page technical bulletin, we had to rewrite it, and then we had to move it from Word to Frame and then relay out the entire manual. So just adding 3 pages often took us 5 days. That's unacceptable. All right, now what about reuse? This is a problem that we had then, and to be honest, we still have this problem. We're whittling away at it, but we've still got it. We reuse information as much as possible, basically because it doesn't matter how a user comes to the information, we want it to be the same so that we've got consistency. Our technical bulletins come from Japan, often come from Japan. They're called an SSJ document. So it's a Japanese technical bulletin. It goes through our translation group. It's translated, it's formatted and laid out. It's in Word. Okay. That document then goes to our technical bulletin group where they go over it, they verify the technical content, they add safety, and then because they use different styles, they reformat it and relay it out again. Now that technical bulletin, which is now in English, good English, looks pretty good. If that gets used by the documentation group for, say, a training manual, because the training manual styles were different, it would get reformatted and laid out again, and any missing information, say steps for a procedure, would be added. So what happens is we've got 3 pieces of information out there, an SSJ document, a TB, and a procedure and a training manual, where the core process is the same, but they're not identical documents. Okay. The other scenario we have is for other technical procedures, for installation check sheets, and that the procedure's the same. The content is reused. It ends up in different end products, but it's not identical, and we've got a lot of, as you can see, a lot of formatting and laying out going on over and over again. Not much value added. So these processes are really inefficient, and they actually threaten our product support because there's so much time spent just on reformatting and laying out that we're not getting we have real trouble getting the content out there to the folks who need it, and we can't as a company continue to do that. So the solution is, don't create documents, create components, modular information. So in order for us to create the components, we knew that we needed to move to DITA. DITA for us basically was a no-brainer, really, because based on DITA topics, there's concept, task, and reference. Our technical material all fell very easily within those categories. So we wanted to adopt the DITA standard. Now, when we started looking at tools, we wanted tools that would support that DITA standard as honestly as possible. So we looked at a lot of different tools. Just 3 of them here that we looked at were Microsoft Word, because Microsoft said they did XML. Granted, now Microsoft's version of XML is a little truer than it was when we were originally looking at it. We looked at XMetal, and we looked at ArborText Editor. We decided to go with ArborText. We went with them for a couple of reasons. One was that PTC's ArborText, we found there was a difference between being DITA compliant and supporting DITA. At the time, ArborText was truly DITA compliant. So we went with it halfway for that reason. The other half was that we already knew that if we were going to be creating thousands and thousands of DITA topics, we were going to need some help managing them. So we needed a CMS system. At the time, we were using a file server as our archive, and that's where all of our material was. Well, all our source material was on this file server. Our technical library is a SharePoint portal or library. So we knew that we were going to need help managing all of this information, and PTC had a content management system that would work with the ArborText tools, and we really wanted to go to a one-stop shop. We didn't want to get into this situation where our authoring tool is one company, our content management is another company, and when something goes wrong, they're pointing fingers at each other, saying, it's not my fault. So, what did we implement with ArborText at that time? Remember, we were doing a proof of concept project. So our project scope was we were going to purchase and install editor, styler. We were going to get the publishing engine. We were going to go with the service manual application, and we were going to go with the import feature. Because remember, so much of our information comes from Japan in PDF, Word, sometimes Excel, and we had to have a way to make it easier to import it into ArborText. We knew that the successful adoption of these technologies would give us the following benefits. We'd increase our throughput. We would get rid of all of that formatting and laying out and a lot of the manual things that we were doing. We would truly have then our single source of document content. We'd be able to reuse our text and graphics as components instead of as books or at the smallest as chapters. We'd improve our flexibility for assembling the documentation for new publications, because if it's in a data map, that's a whole lot easier to rearrange or create a new data map and have a new flow of information for, say, a new training class than it is to take all those big files, FrameMaker files, and try and repurpose into a new class. And we wanted to have some dynamic publishing so that we could output to PDF for print and for posting on a portal, and HTML. And that's exactly what we got. So we implemented XML in a highly structured or open source standard. We did extremely little customization and specialization on DITA. We went as close to out of the box as we possibly could. Okay, so our authoring is now done in DITA topics, concept, task, and reference. We've changed task, just verbally. We call it concept, procedure, and reference. It was a little more helpful for our technical writers to do that, and it doesn't really seem to make much difference anyway, because it's still a DITA topic and it still follows the rules, no matter what they call it. Our topics are mapped to publish out through DTDs and style sheets to create manuals or other documents. The tools we're using for that are Siler and Architect. Editor, of course, is for our topics. Our production and publishing is now automated. There's no more formatting and laying out, or there's no more desktop publishing. There's no more having technical writers arguing about what header level something should be and how it's supposed to look. There's no more arguing about, well, a first level head in a tech bulletin should look like this, but a first level head in a training manual should look like that. No, they don't get to have those discussions anymore. Everything goes through the style sheets and it goes through the publishing engine. That's all taken out of their hands. All right, so we've automated our publishing. It's got automatic layout, it's based on rules, we can merge data, we can manage our links now. We had horrible problems before. If anybody moved a graphic or moved a FrameMaker file, all the links were broken. Very, very painful because you've got to rebuild them all. So now we can have multiple outputs very, very easily. Depending on what we want our end product to be, we can have a print or PDF. We can go to the web or CD-ROM. We can do handhelds and wireless. Currently, we are not doing, even though we can do HTML, we can output HTML, we are not publishing to the web as HTML. And that's based on some infrastructure issues that we have because SharePoint is our platform for that. And we are not, and I don't know that we will ever do handhelds and wireless, and that's based solely on the fact that our customers are very security minded. In fact, our FSEs, when they're in the fabs, the customer fabs cannot have cell phones because cell phones have cameras. PDAs, they can bring a laptop in, but it cannot be hooked to wireless, cannot be hooked to the internet. We've got all these security issues, and you have to respect that. Personally, I would love to see everything available like on a tablet for our FSEs, and we may get there, but that'll be another battle in the future. All right, so the key concepts that we had to get across not only to upper management but to the technical writers was that our content had to be structured. And for that to be structured, we needed to determine what our taxonomy would be. We needed to determine what is our metadata. And what sounded, those two items sound like very straightforward goals. Not so much. We still have debates about what our metadata should be, depending on what department at Nikon Precision is inputting opinions on this. But we did have to basically train our technical writers. We need a taxonomy. We need metadata. We're going to do structured authoring. You're not desktop publishing anymore. You're following a standard. You've got rules. And the DTDs, are defining the quote-unquote template that you're going to be using. And that XML itself really separates the content from the style. It's ASCII text without a font, color, or format information. So this was actually, at what was at first very painful for our technical writers. They didn't want to do this. They kind of liked laying things out if they only had to do it once. But they also would complain about, I'm not really writing. I spend all my time just laying this stuff out, kind of split personality. This way we get to tell them, look, now you're focusing on the accuracy of the content. This is what you're spending all your time doing. And that has been a good selling point for them. All right, so with XML, the background preparation is transparent to our writers. It's minimal impact to the content authors. Follows and reinforces the industry standards. We're a semiconductor company. Standards are big deals with us. Okay, and it's a big deal, back in Japan too. Standards are very important to us. It maintains a single point of contact for the management. Our processes would finally catch up with current industry best known methods. Now this was 2007, we're moving into 2008, and we're noticing in all the benchmarking that we're doing that we're really behind the curve. We have got to do something. So it was time to move. Our documentation standards needed to be not only catching up with the industry, but compliant with future solutions. Oops, sorry. So in the summer of 2008, we started implementation in January of 2008. Working with the Solution Center, getting our style sheets created, all of that. In summer of 2008, our documentation group moved into DITA 100%. No longer creating books. Our information was now modular. We created topics, and those topics were considered to be the source of truth, which would be, in other words, the most accurate version we could possibly make it. And that it didn't matter where that information went out to, whatever end product it was always going to be the source of truth, so the end products were all consistent as far as content. So, for example, a topic can be used in a technical bulletin or as a procedure in a training document. It's the same content, even though the purpose is different. So we had a pilot project. In June of 2008, our original plan for a pilot project was one training manual for one machine. This actually, it was going to probably be about end product maybe 300 to 500 pages, depending on which manual we chose. However, just as we were getting ready to launch our pilot project, our main customer came in with a request. They wanted the entire curriculum for that machine revamped, and they wanted it done immediately. So our quote-unquote pilot project went from one manual to an entire training curriculum set for that machine. We had a 4-week notice of a new deadline. So in other words, beginning of June, we're going to do one manual. Then we find out we've got until the end of June to do the entire curriculum. So we had 4-week notice for 6 manuals for a total of 2,000 pages. Now remember, we've only got 3 technical writers, 1 illustrator, a production person, and me. But we made it. Because we were so focused and because the content was now modular, we could convert and reflow that information into whatever training course that customer wanted. So, believe it or not, it actually was a success. And what progress have we made so far? Well, remember this slide that I had earlier about how long it took us to, convert information or reuse it or revise it. Now when we get a PDF in from Japan, it used to take us 4 hours just to get it from Word into FrameMaker. It now takes us 30 minutes using an import map. Okay. It's now taking half the time. So this 14 days, it now takes us like 7 days because we've still got cleanup to do once it's imported into ArborText, but we're cleaning up tags now instead of dealing with Japanese double byte issues and styles and all of that. It's now taking us half the time to do the cleanup. And we are not doing any style application. Reusing material, what used to take us 4.5 days to reflow information into another end product, it now takes us 15 minutes using a data map. Now, I can give a little bit more of an update on that. We've actually gotten it down to as little as 6 minutes. I had a case a few months back where we had created an internal-only manual for the software department. And the guy came down from the software department, he's in my cubicle, he's talking to me about, well, we've got this manual and we want to give it to the customer, and what do you think, and how long is it going to take? And while he was talking to me, I reprofiled it. He had no other real changes in flow that he wanted. I reprofiled it, made it a customer version, and spit out a PDF in 6 minutes. So while he's talking to me, I gave him a product. So that was a huge selling point for our group because that spread through the grapevine. Okay, and again, we're not laying out any pages. Revising content. Now what used to take us 7 days if an instructor came in and said, I want to change this training manual, depending on the revision, it can take between minutes and an hour or two, depending on what they want revised. Because we're not doing all of the administrative stuff of let's fix the footers and the version number and let's reflow it in the styles. We're not doing any of that anymore. The map is handling it all. And if we incorporate a TB into a manual, that 3 pages, that TB's got its content in data topics. It takes us minutes to get it into that training manual data map, and we've got a new end product. So our progress to date: increased efficiencies, That PDF to usable content, what used to take us 14 days, now takes us 7 days. In reusing content, what used to take us 4.5 days, now takes us 15 minutes. Based on these two tasks alone, our annual return on investment is over $300,000, just on these two tasks. We've been so busy, we have not had a chance to do a full ROI and assessment on it for all the tasks that we had captured in the very beginning. Right now, we're currently conducting that exhaustive ROI and maturity assessment. But from these two tasks alone, we've already got an ROI of over 300K. So I guess I can say that XML structured authoring is a success, and that we're ready to expand. Now, we had one kind of big gotcha that we had not anticipated. We ended up having additional graphics work that we didn't know we were going to have, and that threw a monkey wrench into things. In FrameMaker, what we had was we reused our graphics too. If we had, say, a 2D graphic of an area of the machine, and in one part of the procedure a call-out points at one part of the graphic can actually be reused in another procedure or another part of the same procedure but have something else called out. So we would just use the same graphic, and the technical writers would use call-outs that basically text boxes and leader lines. There would be another layer on top of the EPS graphic. Now, in Editor, you can't do that. Well, the graphic will come through, but the callouts won't, because we're working with nothing but links. So all of our callouts were missing, and that required our technical illustrator to input the callouts into our EPS graphics. We've tried a few different ways. We've tried putting different callouts in different layers. We've tried having the same graphic, but it has a different sub control number on it. We've got usable graphics in our content, but as far as our system for our graphics, we're still ironing out the bugs. Some things work better than others, and everybody I've talked to, is having somewhat similar problems. But that was something we had not anticipated. So what does our system look like? Now we've got raw XML going through our translation group. It's either an SSJ, which is Japanese Technical Bulletin, or it's a check sheet. We've got technical writers in the doc group creating concepts, procedures, references. We've got graphics files. All of this is now goes into a content management system that holds all the topics and the graphics. It goes through our publishing engine. Excuse me. Our end products can be a lesson plan, a participant guide, any kind of the product material, technical bulletins, check sheets, service procedures. So we've got all these little topics, and it doesn't matter what the end product is. We've got our source of truth. And then from that, it goes out to FP2 is short for Focal Point 2, which is our technical center or technical library, which is on that SharePoint platform. And we have a customer portal, which is also a SharePoint platform for certain customers. So that information that goes out, if it's deemed that it's appropriate for customers, say it's a technical bulletin, and it's deemed appropriate for customers, it will go out to that customer portal as well as our internal Focal Point portal. Now this is a huge problem, or yeah, can be actually. What happens when something's updated? Yeah. If we've got all these end products out there and that source of truth piece is in those end products, what happens when it needs to be updated? Well, really, it doesn't matter whether we get that feedback from if it's an FSC using a technical bulletin or a service procedure, or if it's an FSC training procedure. It doesn't matter where we get the feedback. It goes into the content management system, into a workflow. It gets updated, and if it's technical content, say a specification that needs revising, there's also a workflow that goes back to Japan so that the original source material is also updated. So a revision anywhere, it's flagged, it's verified, and it automatically updates all instances. So we've now got the latest and greatest out there all the time, and it's much, much smoother than it ever was before and much more accurate. So I stole this line from, I think it's a Timbuk 3 song, "Future's so bright I gotta wear shades." So we're better. We're still improving. We still have redundancies. We still lose time and money. We still have some inefficiencies in areas. Remember that flow that I showed you with the technical bulletins, all the reformatting and relaying out. Remember our pilot project and our initial launch was for training material. We're now at the point of pulling all those TBs into the DITA process. We're using XML structured authoring as our foundation. So our technical information is migrated into Arbortext Editor, and we're rolling that up to our translation group. Those translated documents will then be sent to documentation for safety and additional info, and the final documents composed out as technical bulletins or check sheets, training procedures, whatever. One file's the basis no matter what the final product. So we are pushing XML, we're pushing DITA upstream into our translation group. It actually is going to improve their processes tremendously. They get a lot of revisions in from Japan. Well, it's very hard for them to take a 1,000-page document and see what has changed based on what they've already got in their translation memory, in their files. So if it's in chunks, it's a lot easier to update that little chunk than 1,000 pages. So we're moving DITA up into our translation group, and we're moving it downstream into our curriculum group. Now remember I talked about our technical writers can easily reflow information. If we've got customers that want a specialized training class on wafer loaders, we can easily reflow it. But my thought was writers should be writing. If there's a technical instructor and they need a new class, I really only need to train the technical instructors on how to create DITA maps and how to reflow information. Why not have the curriculum developers, the instructors, creating DITA maps? If there's nothing that needs to be written, we can easily do that. So I'm pushing it downstream into curriculum. And all of this is managed through a content management system with workflows, and it's all for translation, training, and documentation, or TechPubs. We're all under the same umbrella called Global Communications and Training, okay, so GCT. So GCT will have everything. We'll be using the same sources, we'll be using the same files, and it'll all be managed within the same system. So currently, DITA is being used by 5 users in documentation. We're proliferating it to technical bulletins, which means 3 additional users for technical and customer bulletins. We're proliferating it to CDM, which is Curriculum Development and Management, in the training group, which is 6 additional users for reusability and training assets. And we're proliferating it to our translation group, 12 additional users. Now our translation group does nothing but Japanese to English, English to Japanese. This is not like localization at most companies where it goes English out to multiple languages. We just deal with the 2 languages, and often it's Japanese to English. So all technical information that's produced by Global Communications and Training, or GCT, will be XML. It'll be easily reused and repurposed, and everyone will be working from, like I said, the one source of truth. So our information will be consistent, it'll be standardized and accurate. Our poor FSCs should have a much better life out there once we get everybody pulled into the system. Now we're managing it with Windchill's PDM link. I was originally going to go with Arbortext Content Manager. That was my initial plan, and I'm not kidding. At the 11th hour, I switched my mind and just made an executive decision. And I switched to PDM link, and the reason I did that was because I knew that later on there were going to be more groups involved with DITA. There were going to be more groups that had to link to our DITA information. Groups like Materials Control, Parts, the service group and how they support the service bombs. And my ultimate vision of this solution is that someday I will have an FSC out in the field in a customer fab, and he's got a problem on a machine, say he's got an error code, and he takes the serial number off of that machine and plugs it into the system, and that system says, oh, okay, that serial number is for an S208, and it's running software version MCSW 6.24. It's had these modifications. This is all the information for that machine, and so it pulls up everything that he needs just for that machine, the technical bulletins, the service procedures, the parts lists, the schematics, all of that. That's my vision. And I knew that to get to that I needed a system that was more groups could easily plug into, and PDM Link was a better solution for us. All right, so we had hit a tipping point, like I said. We had an opportunity to make a major leap forward in our processes. We could improve our efficiencies and reduce our reliance on headcounts to solve load issues. It was always, well, you know, you're running behind, get some more people in here. Well, we all know the economy changed that, didn't it? And we wanted to have minimal impact on other groups, such as our IT department. You know, those folks take hits too. And let's all be honest, IT groups are never really comfortable with tech pubs groups, because our tools are never, or rarely, are the company norm. Okay, oops. What did I just do? All right, got it. Okay, so like I said, we were at a tipping point. We could move forward or we could go backwards. We could spend more later and have more things to repair because, you know, remember, this is 2008. We're starting to have the economies going and companies are not wanting to spend money on things. So it was a hard sell. And I told them, we can move forward or we can stay where we are and actually fall backward because we'll have more to fix later and we're just not going to be able to keep up. Our volume is going to be lower, our efficiency is going to be lower, it's going to be higher costs down the road. So we had a choice. Our quantity of information only increases. We get more machines, we get new technologies, they're more complicated, So there's a lot more technical information that supports these machines. You know, it's not going to get any better. And if we're managing content modularly and with a CMS, that's easily scalable, but headcount isn't. And basically I told them, yeah, we can either solve the problem with tools or we can solve it with headcount. And we all know companies are reluctant to do headcount. All right, so we wanted a solution that would easily grow. We built workflows that are currently structured to support our U.S. operations at Nikon Precision. But I also had them built so that they would have placeholders for those front-end activities that happen in Japan. Literally right now there's lifecycle states that say Japan development or Japan translation. I mean, it's just a block. As later on, as we get more people in this whole system, then those will be fleshed out. Our information assets, once in XML, are sent through workflow back to Japan. Remember, I had mentioned that if we made any changes here, we have workflows that feed it back to Japan so it can be updated at the source. So that enhanced and revised content is shared with our sister subsidiaries. And our system easily expands to other groups at Nikon Precision, like advanced tech support, advanced engineering. We just purchased additional licenses. So we actually wanted a system that was more than just a content management. Eventually, all technical information is part of one repository used across the enterprise. And the PTC products, such as PDM Link, support not only Editor, ArborText Editor, but Office and CAD and other files. And the Windchill system handles our CAD drawings, our parts catalogs, and they all tie into the bill of materials. So we're looking at phased growth. I call it baby steps and simmer states. We make small incremental progress forward. Let it sit and simmer for a while. See how this works. Find any bugs, make any tweaks you need to make. So that's a little slower than some of our upper management would like it to be, but I think it's probably safer. Our system is scalable, like I said, by adding licenses, small incremental addition of key users with a business admin for each of these groups who works with the main system manager. And not everybody at Nikon Precision has to be a Windchill user. There are a lot of folks who probably will never need to get into the system. But there are other folks who would have minimal need to get into the system. So we're looking at enhanced interconnectivity between our Windchill system and our Focal Point 2 or our SharePoint system. And many of the folks at NPI will probably access the system this way. We'll create collaboration sites and wikis. That way it'll enhance interactivity and collaboration, but we don't have to buy very expensive licenses for everybody. And uploading content, say an FSE writes a technical bulletin. They don't have to be an FSE who has to have an account in Windchill. They could upload it to a Focal Point 2 site, and that would trigger a workflow in the CMS for content development and the change process in that. So what it means is that we have one repository for everybody. We have access to areas, and files are granted or denied through permissions. We have some groups that do very specialized work that not everybody needs access to and shouldn't have access to. Workflows are within groups or interconnected between groups and departments. Tasks are through email notifications. This, like I said, we're just getting this up and running, and so far this system is working very well for our needs. We have teams. They can form their own templates if they want. We have a very robust change management system, which is, I think, going to be awesome for everything. It's set up within PDM Link as problem reports and change notices. I'm applying it also to documentation. So if a document is found to have an error in it, a problem report is filed for it. So we'll be getting all this reporting history that can support excuse me, that can support doc revs. And a lot of this stuff is out of the box, and it's configurable if you want it to be. And guess what? Because of our transition to DITA and our implementing a content management system, this has sparked, I'm not kidding you, intense interest in the solution in Japan. Our sister subsidiaries are also very interested, and corporate headquarters is extremely interested in what we're doing. A couple of months ago, we had a delegation of management folks from Japan come to Belmont, and that we were talking about technical documentation, and they were mentioning that, you know, oh, we're creating these 30 to 50 manuals for these machines, and we noticed there's all this repeated information. It's very expensive to, you know, keep, you know, working this way. And we looked at them and we went, well, wait a minute. Maybe you want to take a look at what we've done with DITA. And so I showed them what we had done with DITA. We're not thinking about end products anymore. We're not thinking about those monolithic manuals. Don't think about it that way. Focus on the content, the pieces of modular information. You can map it into whatever you want an end product to be, but all your focus and energies are on creating that source content. And that made a very favorable impression with them. And we are having like bi-weekly project meetings with Japan now. The interest is so high. They want to know what we're doing, and to be honest, if it goes as it looks like it's going to go, we can actually have them connect into our system. You know, we just need to get licenses for them and train them on DITA and that. But they're very interested in what we're doing, and they're seeing it as a positive solution to their problems too. They're feeling the pain too. So like I said, all design and manufacture occurs in Japan, and the source files vary. They come in Word and Excel. There's some FrameMaker. Yeah. There's loads of reuse in Japan, but like we had, all of their tasks are completed manually. Requires huge headcount and time. They have much larger departments, TechPub's departments, than we have. And like I said, our sister subsidiaries are feeling our pain. So what we have now is this really kind of glorious new collaboration opportunity, excuse me, for working together to solve Nikon Precision technical information for our FSEs and our customers. So we're fostering DITA use in Japan with our repository becoming the enterprise repository. This is going to eventually, when they get on board with this, it's going to really speed our processing times in the U.S. We won't be importing anymore because it'll come to us in DITA topics. And it'll allow us to spend even more time on focusing on the quality of the content. All this processing stuff is just going to go away. So we're on the right road. DITA was a no-brainer for us. It was a perfect solution, and it's a good enough solution that, like I said, Japan is now very interested in this as well. And I honestly think that they're going to come on board with us. This is looking really good. So I want to thank you. Are there any questions? Brandon?
Thank you, Deb. That was excellent. Lots of very, very good information about the implementation process there.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Looks like we've got another question just popped up, and we'll give a few minutes for folks to type in questions.
Absolutely.
Let's see. The question that just came in is, did you implement CMS from the beginning in June 2008, your content management system? And if you did not, I understand you're implementing PDM Link right now. How were the past 2 years with DITA and without a CMS? And if you did implement right from the beginning, what features of the CMS did you implement from the beginning in June 2008, and which ones are you just implementing now?
Okay, very good question. We did not implement CMS right away, which is one of the reasons we knew we were going to need to sooner rather than later. And so we were actually managing our first DITA topics with rel tables and, believe it or not, Excel spreadsheets as to where something came from, what it was in, was it going anywhere. I mean, it was extremely tedious, and luckily we did not have to do it very long. Because
so you actually used DITA maps as a tracking mechanism then?
Yes.
Gotcha.
Yes. Yeah, because we kind of did the financing in two phases. We did phase 1 where we moved to structured authoring, phase 2 with CMS.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And actually, kind of on that note, the next question is, can you give us a rough idea what the basic system costs in kind of round numbers?
The system for DITA and CMS, or separately?
I guess probably each piece separately, if you know.
Okay. I think I do.
Okay.
To do the DITA implementation with all of the working with the consultants to have the style sheets and that configured, and the publishing engine in that, I think we spent $100 and I think it was $90,000 on the whole DITA solution, basically.
Right.
So it was the Arbortext licenses and
just the structured authoring, content, and publishing.
Yes, yes. And the CMS, I'm not as up on the numbers for the PDM link, but I want to say it's about $150,000. We did something a little different with our implementation of PDM link. We were looking at spending something like $75,000 for servers for the solution. Excuse me. And our IT department was really, really struggling, and they flat said, you know, we can't support this. So we've actually hosted our PDM link with a company called Product Space. Did all the installation on servers there. They do all the hosting. They do all the maintenance. So all the patches and updates and all of that, they do all of that for me. Anytime I have an issue, I contact them, I open a ticket, and they take care of the heavy lifting for me. So, I mean, that's an added expense we had not anticipated. But it actually kind of works out because it was going to fall roughly along with what we were going to spend on servers. But we actually had expertise that we weren't going to have in-house. We've got it now by hosting the system.
Gotcha. Okay. And let's see. How much for the hosting?
The hosting, I think, runs us, I think it's I want to say it's like $75K a year
Okay.
for the hosting and the maintenance.
Gotcha. Okay. And do you have you found that the security was not an issue with having it hosted, having your content in somebody else's hands?
Yeah, that was a scary one at first. Especially, and it's funny because, you know, the IT group says, we can't support you, we don't have the bandwidth, and then they say, oh, but these are our crown jewels, this is, you know, highly, you know, proprietary information, we can't just have it out there. So we worked with them very closely. We let them pick the firewall, you know, and we literally shipped the firewall to the hosting facility.
Oh, okay.
And everything goes through that firewall, and I mean, that's a firewall that locks everything down.
Mm-hmm.
So everything's through a VPN token. Every user has to have a VPN token to get through the firewall, and what we did was at the same time we hosted the PDM link, we also moved our publishing engine behind that firewall in the hosting facility.
Mm-hmm.
So all publication, all production, and all content management goes through that firewall, and it's very secure.
Excellent. Okay. Have you used data specialization capabilities at all? Have you thought of using specializations to cut down on the number of extraneous tags required?
We did not use a lot of specialization. Sorry about that. Not so much to cut down on tags, but more as a compromise between, you know, a baseline data standard and basically kind of the Nikon look of information. For instance, our figure titles appear at the bottom of a figure instead of above it, and so that was a slight specialization. Another one we had was this tag we had created for us because it was a compromise with the technical writers who just could not stand the fact that a first level head would, you know, with a regular map, information just flows. Mm-hmm. So they just honestly could not stand the fact that that first level head appeared too far down the page. They wanted it to appear on the next page. So we had a little specialization created where they could actually put a page break between some data topics in the map so that would flow a little better for them.
Gotcha. A little nod to the hand tweaking that
yes.
authors are so woe to let go of when they move to a solution like this. Huh?
Exactly. And I had to look at it as a compromise.
Sure,
you know,
sure.
From my point of view. You know?
Right. Okay. We got one person who's asking, this person just getting familiar with DITA, and he says he's still not completely clear on exactly what DITA is, and can you recommend a hopefully free source of learning or familiarization with DITA to get up to speed quickly on what it's all about and why you might be interested in using it?
Okay. There are actually some very, very good books out there. Not so much free, but the books are fairly inexpensive. Anne Rockley's book, DITA 101, is good. What is his name? The book is called Practical DITA, and it's, what's his name? Is his name Julio? Oh, rats. I wish I could remember his name. Practical DITA is another good book.
Julio Vasquez?
I'm sorry?
Julio Vasquez?
The best guess? It was...
No. Julio Vasquez.
Vasquez. Yes. That's it. Thank you very much. Mm-hmm. That's exactly who he is.
Yep, actually one of our listeners messaged me with the name just now. I had it kind of on the tip of my tongue too, but he got to it first. So.
Terrific.
Thank you, Mark.
Yeah, so those are excellent books. What we did with our authors, now this is not free, But what we did with our authors was ComTech, or the Center for Information Development, CIDM, does a lot of things on DITA. And one of the things they do is a DITA boot camp. We sent all of our writers at one time or another to the DITA boot camp because it covers more than just DITA. It's minimalist writing and structured writing and DITA topics. It really helped them grasp the concept of DITA. There are actually a lot of free webinars that get offered. A lot of our writers have taken those. You know, it's like from the very basics of DITA. DITA is, and this is one thing that I've had to agree with some of our writers, DITA is a different way of looking at your content. You're actually looking at your technical information and you're saying, okay, is this theoretical information? If it's all theory about how something works, well, you know, that's a concept. And a procedure is pretty straightforward. Okay, this is a procedure, it's a task. A reference topic is, that one's a little grayer. If it's a table of specifications, that's a no-brainer. That's a reference topic. But there's other stuff that falls under reference that, you know, maybe, you know, you sit there and you look at it a little differently. But I kind of tell my writers there's kind of a rule of thumb. What kind of information is it? And as far as a topic is concerned, is this a piece of information that can stand on its own? Can it be reused somewhere else? That has kept us from going too granular with our DITA topics, which would make them even harder to manage without a CMS than we already had. So, and that's worked out pretty well. But yeah, I think, yeah, there are a lot of free webinars. There's a couple of good books out there. The OASIS site often has a lot of good information.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, OASIS is the standards group that is in charge of the DITA standard.
Yes.
Lots of good resources on their site.
Yes, they do.
Let's see. You mentioned the DITA boot camp. That's the Joanne Hackos course.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, it is.
And then DITA 101.
That's Ann Rockley.
Rockley. Yep. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, the one of the persons who asked that question is posting a couple of URLs back at me and asking if those are correct, and I just looked at them quickly. Those look like the courses that you were talking about.
Oh, good.
I can go ahead and paste those for anyone else who's interested.
Oh, that'd be great. Yeah. And Joanne Hackos has done a book, Introduction to DITA, that's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
They actually use that book in their DITA boot camp.
Yeah, it's kind of considered one of the Bibles of DITA, I believe,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yes, it is.
I also posted the ISBN number for the Practical DITA book.
Oh, I see that.
In the
Yes, that's
chat
good.
window if folks want to check that out.
Yeah, great.
All right, and we are just about at the end of our time here. So if there aren't any more final questions, let me just double check here and see if we got anything else. The detailed real-world before and after presentation with the ROI is very, very useful. Thank you very much for that.
Oh, good, good.
And let's see, one of the attendees wants to know if we can get a copy of the slides. The entire presentation has actually been recorded, and that includes actually the slides, everything you've been able to see on screen here. So we should be getting that posted fairly soon. So you can obviously see all the slides in that recording. I'll have to check with the group organizers and see if the slides are available as well. Is that something you're able to make available, Deb?
Yes, I think so.
Okay. So yeah, look for information about that in the postings from the group.
Right.
And I guess one last question: how much effort did it take to develop or define the new taxonomy in metadata? Sounds like that's kind of an ongoing thing, isn't it?
It is an ongoing thing, only because people just can't agree. It honestly should not have been, because our information is technical information. It's semiconductors. A lot of our information is based on what is the machine type, what is the subsystem. You know, the taxonomy really is, you know, very straightforward. It shouldn't have taken very long, but it is an ongoing process because, you know, there's a lot of debate. But I think that the core taxonomy and metadata, I think we thrashed that out within a week.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I think that just about wraps it up.
Okay.
I had one person asking a question about the group. For those who aren't familiar, that is sfbayptcuser.org is where you can find information about the group. I'm going to go ahead and paste that into the chat window here. You can find more information about that. And we're just about out of time, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up here. Once again, Deb, thank you very, very much for your time. It was an excellent presentation.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad everybody joined.
Okay, and we'll see you all next month.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.